Okay. We've just seen, I think we'll all agree, is a fairly extraordinary event in political history. It's been telegraphed for some time now in advance, so we discuss things weekly by Skype, more latterly by telephone on the ISN steering committee. So we've been discussing this for the last 6 weeks or so. I was on holiday, came back from holiday and found that Jeremy Corbyn, from being an outsider, was the leading candidate to become the lead of the Labour Party, which I have to admit I did not expect. I think I said in the article that I wrote that this is potentially, well, I think it is the biggest thing to happen in the labour movement for the working class since the miners' strike. There's no guarantee it's going to lead to a successful conclusion. There's the miners' strike going to lead to a successful conclusion. But there is going to be a massive social, political and class struggle as a result of this. If nothing else, from the ruling class and the establishment and the right of the Labour Party, who understand quite clearly that their interests are directly challenged by the election of Corbyn, who, think about it, is just about the most left-wing member of the Parliamentary Labour Party you could elect, with the exception perhaps of John McDonnell. So this is very dramatic, completely unprecedented, I think, in the history of the Labour Party, just in terms of the political spread of the Labour Party, having someone being pushed up to the leadership of the party from the left. So it's a political earthquake, but at the same time we have to keep our feet on the ground. So I think the purpose of this discussion is to come to an understanding of what's changed, what bits of the landscape aren't there anymore, what bits of landscape have emerged as a result of this earthquake, but also what remains the same and what our principles are, what our political objectives are. So as Jeremy Corbyn has been throughout the campaign, and as we saw just now in his response to his election victory, I think we have to remain calm and fairly low-key about it, but we have to be determined, and I think we have to respond to this dramatic change. You've seen there's been 2 articles on this in the project. There's a lot of agreement between me and Nick, I think, about the significance of Jeremy Corbyn's victory, also about the limitations and contradictions of his politics and the programme he's put forward. Also agreement about the nature of the task which faces us as socialists who are committed to what I would call the principles of Marxism, and who think we need a revolutionary transformation of society. However, there do seem to be differences in our understanding of what the Labour Party is, I think perhaps, and how Marxists should relate to that. That's what I pick up. So in my talk I was going to sort of talk about that, but I'm not sure whether, since I've taken quite a long time just to do a very slow introduction, I'm not sure I'm going to have time to cover that. But I just want to emphasise that amongst the constants of the political scene for us are the principles of Marxism. And for me, those aren't anything to do with some insanely complicated political theory that only a few academics can understand, or any requirement to adhere to the outcome of the first 4 congresses of the Communist International, valuable though it is, I think, to discuss those. But a few simple principles of working class independence, the working class having to organise for itself, democracy, which I think is a critical issue, both for our own organisations, and we see what happens, the degeneration which happens in working class and socialist and Marxist organisations when there isn't democracy, and also in terms of the change we want to bring about in society itself. Internationalism, we're for an international revolution, for transforming the whole world, not just, we can't achieve what we're going to achieve just in Britain, and the objective, as I said before, of socialist transformation, which is informed by the principles I've outlined there. Those principles need to be represented in an organisation that you could call a socialist party informed by Marxist principles as Nick did, or a Marxist party, or a communist party, or a revolutionary socialist party. All these terms are used to describe this kind of party. I think lots of the parties which claim to be of that nature have failed us. In fact, I think virtually all of them have. So this remains an aspiration rather than a reality now throughout virtually the whole world. So that remains the same. But what's changed? Well, obviously the election of Corbyn I think is transformative. It puts anti-austerity, anti-war politics right at the centre of British political life now. That's going to shift the mainstream, although you see the attempts of the BBC to interview entirely the old mainstream politicians and resist what's happening, and that's what they'll try to do for a bit, but I think they won't be able to achieve that. They're going to have to interview Corbyn and his supporters. It's going to shift the whole tenor of the political debate to the left. It's going to make it more fractured as well, because there's going to be enormous conflict as a result of that. That's great, that's good. That's the kind of thing we need. And by shifting the mainstream political debate to the left, it opens up space for socialist and Marxist ideas. Secondly, what's changed is that Corbyn was elected with the support of hundreds of, there were 250,000 either existing members or new members or supporters of different kinds of the Labour Party backed Corbyn. And backed with the trade unions as well. He reeled off a whole list of trade unions which have sponsored him. This is as a result of pressure from the grassroots. I don't think the leaders on the whole would have seen themselves as supporting Corbyn. So this is potentially a new political movement which Corbyn has brought into existence in the space of 2 or 3 months, the kind of movement which Tusk and Left Unity for the last 5 years, or 2 years in the case of Left Unity, have sought to bring into being. It now, in one sense, exists, but very potentially does exist. So what does this mean for the Labour? Does it mean the Labour Party can be turned into guerrilla organisations within capitalism? But actually the watchword we need to raise is the abolition of the wages system itself. And so for that reason, that's why the Labour Party has been mired in reformism. That's why in the last 30 years, as trade unions have been defeated and lost confidence, the Labour Party has been hollowed out as a shell, and the Blairites have been able to take over, and so on. But this leads me to another conclusion, which is in the same way that the trade unions can be, that we seek to win the trade unions to our politics. If we could win the trade unions to our politics, given, and the Labour Party still exists as an organisation of affiliated trade unions, it seems to me ridiculous to think that we couldn't win the Labour Party to the politics of Marxism and socialism as well. But we don't do that by becoming, by burying ourselves in the Labour Party and becoming loyalist members of the Labour Party. That will only happen if there is a party of socialists and Marxists, which, by the way, in principle, I think you don't build a socialist or Marxist party like perhaps Tusk has been trying to do by having trade unions affiliated to it, for the reason that I've just said, that you win the trade unions to your politics, you don't import the politics of trade unionism into your party. And in fact, the Socialist Party understands that extremely well. They would never consider having trade unions affiliate to the Socialist Party, yet they want in Tusk to replicate what the Labour Party was for them. So they quite understand this difference between having what is in effect a party, a Marxist party, and a united front of the working class. They're seeking to create in Tusk a united front of the working class. The Labour Party isn't a united front of the working class. I think it's a bourgeois workers' party, but for as long as it exists, it has the potential to become a united front of the working class, but only if socialists and Marxists organise and are strong. And I'll cut to the chase, and my argument is that Marxists and socialists build themselves. We're only going to create a Marxist party. I mean, we've discussed before the lots of things that are wrong with the previous attempts by being involved in the struggles where the class is. And I think that the struggle where the class is now, it may only be for the next few months or the next few years, is in the Labour Party. So what we need to discuss, and I'm not saying a necessary conclusion of that is that we all join the Labour Party. I think we need to, whatever we do, we need to organise collectively as socialists and Marxists, but that's where the struggle is going to be. The struggle is going to be, by the way, I agree with Nick in his criticism of Corbyn's economic programme. It's going to be as much with those who support Corbyn, who, by the way, many of them would self-describe as Marxists, so the limitations of Corbyn's programme is as much a crisis, represents the crisis of Marxism, as well as the fact that you could describe him as a left reformist and all of that. Marxists, whether in Tusk or left unity, have shown them all too happy to fight elections, to campaign amongst the working class on pretty much exactly the same kind of limited anti-austerity politics which Corbyn represents. But this is, so the struggle is with Corbyn, it's with other Marxists, it's to recreate a Marxist movement and put Marxist ideas at the centre of British political life. I think Corbyn's victory that we've just seen represents a narrow window of opportunity to make that happen.